It is my pleasure and honor to present to you Threads of Tradition, Slavic Voices in Folklore. This project is co-created with a group of amazing people coming from various Slavic countries and regions who came together to share about the folklore, traditions and practices of their people. As you know, Slavs are not a monolith, and our customs, language and beliefs vary greatly across regions, each with unique historical, bioregional, religious and political environments. We come together to honor our differences and compare that which unites us. In this discussion panel, you will learn about the customs of chasing away winter and welcoming spring, complete with unique local folklore, rituals, community celebrations, and folk magic of this time of year. It would mean a great deal if you spread the word to help this project grow and to support all of the amazing panelists who came together to generously share about their culture with the world. Thank you and enjoy.
It's a pleasure to host this meeting and to welcome practitioners of Slavic traditions from all sorts of regions, countries, and groups of Slavs. Welcome. So my name is Joanna Tarnawska. I'm known online as the Polish Folk Witch. I come from the Lower Silesia region, Dolnośląskie in Poland. I am a practitioner of Polish folk magic, animism, and traditional folkloric witchcraft. I have a professional background in psychology and social work. I like to think of myself as an amateur folklorist, and I like collecting rare pieces of lore and traditions with a special interest in witch lore, Polish demonology and folk magic, as well as reinterpreting traditional folkloric perceptions of the world through an animist lens. I create education and community around Polish folk traditions and magic, as well as animism and witchcraft. When it comes to my work, you can check out my classes and community projects via Patreon. My upcoming book, Polish Folk Magic, Ancestral Lore and Traditions of the West Slavs, is currently available for pre-order with the Crosscrow Books. And you can also read my articles in Femme Occult magazine.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamara, Nightshade, as most of you know me online. Nightshade Tarot on Instagram and YouTube. I am Bosnian by blood, but living and born in Slovenia. Central part of Slovenia, and although my family practices are mostly based on Islam and Bosnian Muslim folk practices, I consider myself pagan and a witch. I'm also a tarot reader and a traditional bean caster. I've been a high priestess of a coven for 6 years now. That works within general Wiccan structure, but we incorporate a lot of elements of different folk practices and healing modalities. My main craft focus is working with various spirits such as fae, elementals, spirits of the dead, spirits of places and such. Not all of them can be classified, in my opinion, so very animistic. As well. I currently have no other ventures online, but I do offer readings for which you can contact me mostly through Instagram and through email, which is also stated on my Instagram account.
Hello everyone, my name is Aleks. I live in northern Germany, but I am originally from Macedonia. My family is based in the Pelagonia region, which is based in South Macedonia. When it comes to my practice, I am a practitioner of Macedonian faith healing, which we call Bajanja. This is an oral tradition of so-called treatments that use a combination of spoken words called basni, ritual gestures, and special tools to heal. The practice of Bajanja is actually very close to the whispering tradition in Poland, if you guys have heard about it. It is something that is taught by word of mouth, usually from an older person to a younger. So the knowledge is kept within families. Or it may also be taught by certain spirits, such as saints or samovili, who tend to visit the practitioners in their dreams to reveal this knowledge to them. In addition to my ancestral practice, I am a certified Reiki practitioner and pranic healer, as well as a diviner. I work with multiple divination methods and tools, for both traditional and mainstream to offer insight and clarity about mundane and spiritual matters. I have a bachelor's degree in metaphysics and social science. I work as a preschool teacher when I'm not doing any healings or readings for my clients. You can find me on Instagram under the username Balkan Witch. In addition to my services that I've mentioned, as a faith healer and a diviner, I create Balkan-based folklore where I share information about various traditions, practices, and beliefs from the Balkan Peninsula. The main regions that I examine or post about would be Macedonia, Serbia, and Bulgaria, and also Bosnia to some extent. What my page is mostly known for, however, is my extensive Balkan Witch course, which is a year-long course where I teach about bajanje, various traditional divination practices, working with land spirits, saints, and ancestors, seasonal festivals, and much more. Every now and then, when I return to my home country, like usually around the summer or winter season, I create in-person workshops where I teach individual segments of the Balkan Witch course. If you guys are interested to learn more about who I am and what I do, make sure to check out my page. Thank you.
I deem it appropriate to follow after Aleks. Hello, everyone. My name is Katerina Sarpionova, but I'm mostly known on the internet as Katerina Sarpion, which is so that I don't make people stumble when they pronounce my Slavic name. I am born and situated in Bulgaria, which is a country in the Central Balkans. And I am the creator of the YouTube channel and other platforms under the name of Tales of Balkan Magic, where I try to share the rich traditions, folklore, and magic of the region, of course, with a focus on my own personal experience as a Bulgarian. You can find all my links and a bit more information on my website, which will be kindly linked below. Now, my practice is very much connected with what I share online. I base my magical practice and my daily rites and whatever not, namely on folklore, tradition, but also on ancient history. I do have background in academia in the region of history and archaeology, and I do base all my practice on that. But I do have focus on the fact that we live in the present and we cannot copy paste everything we see from the ancient texts. I consider myself an animist and a polytheist. And I do like to introduce myself as a sorceress telling tales of Balkan magic.
Hi, my name is Mariana, and I'm known online under the moniker Venelestis. I was born and live in the Bohemian region of the Czech Republic, but I'm half Bulgarian on my mother's side, and I have Polish and Slovakian roots on my father's side, so I'm a little bit pan-Slavic also. I am a lifelong magic practitioner and a student of all kinds of occult. And through my life, I've gone through many traditions and modalities, exploring and looking for myself. But what has always weaved through my own practice was magical and medicinal herbalism, plant lore, and plant spirit works, and from the animistic lens as well. And I currently illustrate a set of plant oracle decks that are meant to bring the beauty of everyday plants that we live around, mainly in Europe, but also throughout the world, closer to firstly my own practice, but also to everybody who is interested.
Hello, I'm Bruno. I'm from Turec region of Slovakia. I'm a folk witch and folk herbalist. I'm somewhere between folk Catholicism and paganism. I focus on Slovak folk traditions and their pre-Christian roots. And important parts of my practice are the veneration of traditional Catholic saints, but in a folkloric manner that sometimes is even pagan in nature. the veneration of local spirits and my own ancestors. You will not find me online.
Hi, my name is Mariya Tobischek. I am a practitioner and first and foremost an artist from Ukraine, from Transcarpathian region. By degree, I am a master of printmaking and arts, but my lifelong journey has always been spinning around collecting folklore and archiving folklore. And I also practice to some extent folk magic and non-Christian traditions. Sometimes it's a mix of animism and ancestral worship together with demonic spiritual work and necromantic. I am working at the moment on my own tarot deck, which is kind of my opus magnum at the moment. And you can follow it on Kickstarter. It's called Ukrainian Night Tarot, which is based on myths, legends, and magical practices in Ukraine. And it's all illustrated by me and written by me. You can find me on Instagram by Dvodushnik or All God's Temple. And yeah, I'll be happy to see you. And you can write me at any time if you have questions.
My name is Sayaa. I'm from Eastern Germany, and yeah, I'm a pagan witch from the Lower Lusatia, which is the area of the Sorbs. Online, I focus on educating people about the Sorbian people and try to explain like folklore and try to research everything so that people know who we are and what our history is. You can find me on the Sayangelic online. And if you want to know something, you can always contact me and I will try to answer as good as I can.
In your region or country, what are the most prominent folkloric observances of springtime and how are they traditionally celebrated in your local communities?
I am going to be speaking for the practices that are happening in Slovenia in the springtime in general. But I did try to kind of not go too wide with this because I feel like each of these practices has so many different layers that it could just be like a 2-hour long video just talking about this. So I'm gonna go like very surface level and then perhaps we can kind of dig into it more. So I am just gonna focus on the 3 kind of bigger ones that we practice and that are generally practiced still today, even in schools. And when I was still in preschool, I remember we also did that, even though it's a public school and these are kind of considered sort of religious, but also they're basically pagan practices. So the one that we are all probably going to point out is the Easter celebrations. And I'm gonna talk about Easter the least because I feel like we're gonna have very similar things to say. But Easter, basically the main thing here, of course, is eggs, painting eggs or scratching designs into eggs, celebrating kind of returning of the abundant part of the year. And this is something that has been practiced and done even out of the scope of the religious perceptions, I would say, because even though my family is Bosnian and we don't participate in these things per se, I remember as a child we did this. Like we would use different plants to color them and print on like different pressed flowers and stuff like that. But this is the one that's like least interesting to me. The most interesting to me is Pust. There's no way to translate it, but we probably have this like in various different Slavic countries. I know that in Italy it is also a thing, but probably more than that. So Pust is basically celebrated 47 days before Easter. And that's always a little bit different because the day of Easter kind of varies with it being celebrated the first Sunday after the first full moon in spring. So it's always a little bit different. And Pust is definitely a very pagan celebration. The main practices in Pust are putting on costumes and masquerading. And it is something that is still very much alive, very much practiced all over Slovenia. Although we have like a little bit of variation even from town to town, even though Slovenia is a very small country. The main thing, as I said, is masquerading, and it's a very old tradition. There are even like written like records about Pust in Slovenia from 17th century, and some are even older but are more connected to like celebrations from neighboring countries. But we are very much fresh new country. We kind of connect into other countries' practices, let's say. And in the olden days, the masks and the costumes would represent ancestors that were basically called upon at this celebration so that they would aid the people with kind of chasing away winter and chasing away any harmful or evil spirits, and basically making space, inviting in the warmer part of the year, the more abundant part of the year. How should I put this? Like laying down the ground, or like laying down the base for then creating abundance in the upcoming year. When it comes to costumes and masks, as I said, it's about ancestors. It's also about honoring the forces of nature, not just like hating on winter, but like honoring winter and honoring the fact that winter has brought in the very much needed time of rest and time of introspection and darkness that allows all of nature to prepare for this more active, filled with work part of year, let's say. And one thing that is also very, very traditional is 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒 on the Fat Tuesday, or I don't know how to say this in English, but this is probably something that we have very much in common. I know with Joanna we already talked about this some years prior. So 𝐏𝐏 is, I guess it's translated into a donut, but it's not like the American, like with the hole, but it's like this fluffy pastry. I believe you call it 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋 or something like that. So this like very fatty pastry that is fried and like sprinkled with sugar and usually filled with some type of a jam. We traditionally like will put, I don't know what the English word is. Marilice. Come on, Slavic people, help me.
Like apricot or cherry?
Yes, apricot. Yes,
apricot.
Thank you.
Okay.
The little round fruit, yellow, orange one. So that is the like kind of a typical filling that we will put into it. That is typical for the Fat Thursday, but we honestly just eat 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄 all the time of spring. Like it starts in February, and it's just we make ourselves fat. Pust traditionally here lasts from the Fat Thursday to Ash Wednesday. And it's this time of like everyone getting loose a little bit, everyone getting a little bit wild, like off the chains, as one would say. One thing that is very traditional for Slovenia is Kurenti. And that's the very, very traditional mask. People will dress in sheep's skin all over their bodies. They have like big eyes, long, like very bright red tongues sticking out, and the most prominent thing is big giant cowbells being strung around their waists. So they would be like jumping around and like going through the whole town, jumping around and just like ringing, scaring away the winter, scaring away any like bad energies, and inviting in spring. With Kurenti, they are more traditional for example, Ptuj, city Ptuj in Slovenia. As I said, like we have varying traditions even within Slovenia itself. But yeah, they're very like an important part of Pust. They're even part of UNESCO, of our like non-material cultural inheritance. I hope I translated it right into English. And then, for example, in Cirknica or Slivnica, for example, is the mountain that is known as the Witch's Mountain, and is very much connected to Pust as well. And they have this Čarovnica Ursula, which is the witch Ursula. She's one of the main characters. We have the Povodny Mož Jezerko, which is like the lake man. I'm not sure how to translate these things into English, but these are all like more or less forces of nature and natural places surrounding these towns. So each town has like a more prominent figure connected to Pust that has a lot to do with their like natural surroundings. And there's also like this giant fish, and we have dragons and all of these things. So as I said, I could just go on and on if I allow myself. The last thing that I would like to say about Pust, that is also a big thing, I would say, is when Pust ends, he gets basically judged and buried. But more traditionally, there's like a big bonfire and he gets like burned. And usually what happens is people will make this like a giant figure of Pust, like a personified Pust out of like, I don't know, cardboard and wood and whatever. And then like he's in court or whatever, like he's being judged, his actions are being judged because people got all loose and whatever, being burned, and all the sins that have been done in this time of Pust are like kind of gone away. Nothing ever happened. And the third thing that we have that I really like is called Gregorievo. It is celebrated on the 12th of March, and we like to call it our Valentine's Day. It is basically God Svetega Gregoria, so it's like what is it called in English? Like the day of the Saint Gregor.
The feast day of Saint
Gregory? Yes. It used to be celebrated on the spring equinox, and it marks the coming of spring. We also call it the day when birds marry each other. It is like traditionally the day when there would be enough light, when like blacksmiths and shoemakers and any other craftsmen would stop working by artificial light. So it used to be a big thing because, you know, you didn't need to use candles, and candles were kind of expensive, and you know, we kind of dismiss it today, but if you think about it, it's a big day. So as I said, it's connected to love, and one practice that I really love about Gregorievo that is still practiced, especially here in Vrhnica where I live, because in Vrhnica there are the three springs of the river Ljubljanica. It is still practiced today that they go and gather with like whole families and children and whatnot, and they release these little boats. They call them Gregorčki, like little Gregors, and they are releasing light upon the water. Basically, they will have like little tiny candles in them, and they will release them at the like top of the river, and so they like float through all the like the woods on this like tiny stream, and they carry light with them upon the water. It's a very strong symbolic pagan thing, basically, because fire is the power of Perun, as well as wood and resin is connected to him, which is what is used to build these little like boats and vessels, basically. And water is the power of Veles, and as well as roots and earth and the darkness. So releasing the light or the flame upon the water is basically like this beautiful invitation of balance and of light to come back in. It's kind of a symbolic of starting a new agrarian year, a new like order and balance is established. And with that, kind of nature is kind of given this new strength and power of birthing again.
Yeah, I kind of like see similarities with some of the stuff that we practice that Tamara was talking about. Like, how was the name of the tradition again that you mentioned, like the first one that you talked about?
Pust. P-U-S-T.
Yeah, we have like this one tradition which kind of like reminded me of Pust, called Prochka. This is we call it like the Day of Great Forgiveness. It's a day which I think like in English it's called like Shrove Sunday. It has like some significance in Orthodox Christianity, which which is dedicated to the mutual forgiveness among believers before the beginning of the Easter fast of Great Lent. And Pruchka is a movable feast. It doesn't have like a fixed date, meaning that the date changes like every year depending on the date of Easter. And it always falls exactly 7 weeks before Easter. So if we look at it from a religious perspective, it is one of the manifestations of sincere and selfless love towards others, following the example of Jesus Christ, if we look at it from a religious perspective. Then of course we have like the more pagan side. It is like one of those days where, similar to like in Pust that Tamara was talking about, people would dress up in certain costumes, wear like certain masks, and like in the old days it was typically something that the men would like do, like they would be the ones who would uphold these traditions where they would like dress up monstrous looking and scary like. And the whole idea behind this was for them to go like around the village, around the town, from house to house, and basically make loud noise and sing and dance and wave around with fire and whatnot to basically scare the bad spirits away, so that they could be expelled and go back to the underworld. So Prochka marks, I would say, like the last day when these exorcism rites, if I can call them like that in English, take place. And they begin in Macedonia like on Badnik, which is like Christmas Eve, like I would call it Christmas Eve in English. So it starts then and it ends on Prochka, like these events when people, dress up and scare away the bad spirits. So it used to be like a holiday where men would dress up, as I said, and nowadays it's basically everyone can dress up however they want. If we look at it like from nowadays, it kind of like reminds me even of Halloween, like how it's celebrated like maybe in the West, that people just wear whatever they want. It's not so much more focused on like the traditional attire and what people used to wear. It's basically very flexible. Anyone can dress up however they want. So kind of like the meaning of this holiday is being like forgotten, and it's not like as it used to be back in the old days. But still, the symbolism of the holiday, as I mentioned, is connected to the whole fact of chasing away winter, chasing away bad spirits, sending them to the underworld, and inviting lighter days to come. More prosperous, more abundant, more joyful. All of those things. Which the spring season is all about.
I'm sorry for interrupting. May I just
Yes.
ask, with you saying that it started on Badnik, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it started on Badnik with the costumes.
Yes. Well, we have like this one day. Well, not with the costumes. We have like before Badnik, we have this day which we call Kolede, and this is like when people light fires and we gather and there's like food and drinks and stuff and certain songs are being sung. After like this event is done, like with the fire, children would, in some places, like not from where I'm from, but in some places they would like dress up, similar to how they do in the West for Halloween. They would dress up in certain costumes and they would go from house to house knocking on doors and singing certain carols, and in return they would get like candy, in some places maybe some money, even though the traditional customs would be to give them walnuts, to give them oranges, to give them like certain like fruits which symbolize abundance. That's like the whole symbolism behind it. Nowadays, like it takes place as I've mentioned, but it's not as big as it was like I don't know, like a decade ago or 20 years ago or in the past. It's definitely because of like the westernization of my culture. I will say, like, I don't want to speak about the others, but of my culture. A lot of these things are slowly beginning to die out. So it's not as it used to be back in the old days. But what I can say about like Badnik, before I move into the spring traditions, what I wanted to mention briefly is that after like this event passes, we have so-called unbaptized days, which is like from Badnik, from Christmas, technically till Theophany, Vodici, like the day when the waters are blessed. And like during those 12 days, it is said that the gates of the underworld are open and all types of spirits are roaming around. And it's considered, unclean or unsafe to like bathe in waters because the waters are possessed by spirits. They have to be like ritually cleansed and all of that. During this time, even like after this 12-day period ends, even if the waters are consecrated and all of that, there are still like regional festivals which take place on different dates where people would mask up. And typically, as I said, men would take on this role of exorcist or someone who like purges the community of the evil spirits. And every region has like different names for like how these men are called. Like the region from my family comes from, we call them 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒. And if I try to like translate this into English, it would mean something like bear men, like men who dress up as bears. But yeah, basically, Pruchka marks the final day of this exorcism period, when people purge the bad spirits to go back to the underworld. And then something which is interesting about Pruchka, like a tradition which takes place, something that I've heard about, even though my family says that as a child I've participated in this, but I have like no recollection of this memory. There's like this thing which is done from in my hometown, Prilep, where they like at the feast of Pruchka, which takes place during the night, they would take like some type of a spoon and like tie an egg around like with a thread. And usually like an older woman would do this, and she would like spin the egg around, and the children will have to basically try to catch it with their mouths. And this symbolizes like some type of a blessing, for fertility, for growth, abundance, and those things. And we call like this practice 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒. Like you have to basically catch the egg with your mouth. So that's like one tradition which is prominent like on this day from my hometown. Like, as I said, it used to be centered around kicking back bad spirits. People would make loud noises. They would dance around the neighborhood, going from house to house, and all of those things would take place. Then something that takes place 3 days after Pruchka, which is Ash Wednesday, there's this type of sedenka, which, if I try to translate this term in English, it would mean something like a gathering of some kind, and usually it's like a women's gathering, like when women gather together and talk about all types of things. This is a very interesting type of sedenka because like during those 3 days from Pruchka till Ash Wednesday, there are some like among the faithful who will not eat anything for 3 days, like literally no food, no drink, nothing. It will be like a total fast, like nothing would be taken to the body. And these women who know of this one faithful woman, let's say, who has committed to this task, on the third day or night, better said, they will go to her house and bring her like food and drinks and stuff, and a whole like fest will be made out of it, to honor her for her sacrifice and what she's gone through in those 3 days. So like if she would follow like all the traditions as they're prescribed, she would have to like lay in bed for 3 days and do nothing. Basically, it's like total fast. Like she doesn't go to work, she doesn't do anything. She's just laying in bed and waiting those 3 days to pass for the women then to come to her house and bring her food and drink. Then we have another holiday which takes place on the Saturday after Great Wednesday. It's called Tudorova Sabota. It is the first Saturday of Great Lent. On this day or before the official holiday, girls would perform a very interesting tradition to learn how to sew. And basically they would prepare small pouches which are made from cloth, and they would do this all at home. And then they would fill them with ash. And on the evening before the holiday, as I said, they would go to a church, their local church, and they would attach the pouches to the belt of a woman who is known for being a skilled seamstress, someone who can like weave and sew. And the women who gathered the most pouches would then go to the river, the local river, and she's gonna throw the pouches basically into the water while saying something along the lines of as the water flows quickly, so too may the girls learn to sew, basically to bless them so they can like learn this trade better and faster. Also, young girls would perform certain rituals on this day or on this night, better said, to try and discover who their future husband would be. And this is something very typical in like a lot of Slavic countries, like this topic, which I'm going to be briefly mentioning. Like during this occasion, the girls would basically save the first bite of food from like the dinner that they had, and they would place it underneath their pillow. And it was believed that the boy that they would dream about that night would later become their husband. So it's a type of folk practice that took place on this day. But yeah, very very customary about like our magical traditions in Macedonia is that they always take place for some reason a day before the actual feast day. Whether it's a saint, whether it's like whatever it is, all of these magical operations, they take place the night before the actual saint feast day or holiday, before the actual praznik. There's also another holiday which is connected to Easter, Lazarus Saturday, which people in the West also know. During this holiday, during this praznik, there's this interesting custom where girls once again would dress up in traditional attire, and they would perform certain songs which we call lazarski. They would go like in groups from house to house, and they would like sing these songs, basically blessing the tenants, wishing them prosperity, abundance, and health. And in return, they would be like rewarded with money, certain gifts that would be given to them. And then, like on the next day, which is Palm Sunday, we call it Cvetnice in Macedonia. The young brides, girls, unmarried women, all of them would walk with baskets in their hands through the village meadows. They would pick flowers. They would make as many flower wreaths as there are members in the family, and they would even like make this very like larger bouquet for the house, which upon returning home is placed in front of the family icon.
What I heard now, it's very interesting, and I would like to also share something about the celebration before Pust or Lent. We call it Fasciangi in Slovakia. And it's also a time when people would dress in costumes. Very traditional is men would dress as women, women would dress as men. And what is really special or important is a costume of turvony, or in English, practically wild bull. That is an animal that no longer like lives in Slovakia because it was extinct. It is extinct. And they would, a group of people, men, that all had some different costume. There were, for like example, hunter or butcher, and they would take the one who was dressed as turvony and go from house to house and kill ritually the turvony on
dung.
Ostrich?
Manure.
Yeah, dung that is used to fertilize the fields. They would kill him so that the dung or the soil used for the fertilization was imbued with the power to give plants grow. The tradition I would like to talk more about is the vynášanie moreny, or the taking out of morena, which is a ritual that has a second part, that is the prinášanie létečka or leta, the bringing of new summer. It is a ritual that is still done, usually by children or folkloric groups, still mainly done by girls or young women, unmarried, on smrtná nedeľa, usually, which is the Sunday, 2 Sundays before Easter. For example, in Spiš, which is a region under High Tatras on the border of Slovakia and Poland, this Sunday was called Černá nedeľa. Morena is an effigy made of straw, dressed in women's clothing, usually white, or sometimes just rags that are left around the house. And the girls would make this straw doll, basically dress her and put her on a pole. And at dawn, they would go from the top of the village to the bottom, because this way the winter would go away. They would sing songs about her, because somewhere she was called Morena or other variation. Somewhere it was called just death, smrtka. And sometimes even 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒, what is a traditional land food of fermented flour soup. But in Turiec, she was called Muriena. Girls would carry her on the smrtna nedela through the village, and then they would go to the nearest river, strip her down of the clothing, set her ablaze, and throw her into the river. And then they would run around screaming, "We drowned the winter," because Morena is like the personification of death, sickness, and winter. And it is done by girls because young people are in the opposition to old age, sickness, and death, basically. And sometimes, even in Turiec, young men would do the same, but they would carry effigy of Dido, or a grandfather, or old man, and they wouldn't set him ablaze. They would beat him and then throw in the water. And this is the first part of this ritual. In this part, you chase away winter, basically. And the next part, nosenie letečka, or bringing of the next new summer, it is done by the girls that carry the Morena. In Turiec, she would dress in the clothes that Morena had on herself, or Muriena, and she would dress as bride queen. She was usually the prettiest from the girls, because they chose her for this role. She would choose like 5 girls to go with her with baskets, and she would carry, the queen would carry a spruce branch decorated with ribbons and silk scarves. And that branch is the letečko, new summer. It is a symbol of warmth, vegetation, and fertility, and prosperity. And then they would go from bottom to top of the village, going house from house, and they would sing and also wish prosperity, fertility on children, the swines, cows, and prosperity in general. And for that, for this vinch, we call it, for this wishing, they would be paid basically with eggs, flour, butter, and milk that would be later used for a communal feast for the girls and boys. In other regions, it was not a spruce branch, but like a willow branch, because they flower first. But spruce here, because this is a mountainous region, and also spruce is also the symbol of everlasting life and fertility, because it's an evergreen. Also, what is traditional today, it is not practiced as much, is the baking of 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒, which is basically a bird-shaped pastry that would be put on trees and shrubs. It was done so that spring birds would come, but probably there is a layer of offerings for the ancestors and spirits of nature, because spring birds mostly are thought as the souls of ancestors that are coming back to this world with warm days and with new growth.
So when it comes to Poland, I can see that a lot of what was already mentioned, but by you folks kind of resonates. I'm not going to talk about all of those traditions again, because we also have Zapust, the equivalent of Pust, and the Tłusty Czwartek, right? The Fat Thursday and so on. But in Poland, really, when it comes to the coming of spring and the traditions that are recognized as such, they begin with the Ash Wednesday, Środa Popielcowa. And Poland in general is a Catholic country, so of course many of those old folkloric traditions would be mixed with folk Catholicism. So that always needs to be understood as a given almost with this type of folklore. So Środa Popielcowa, Ash Wednesday starts the Lent period, the Wielki Post period, when we fast. And there's a lot of celebrations related to that, but I'm also going to skip those. So we can get to the actual good part of the rites that mean to chase away winter and invoke spring. And similarly to what Bruno was talking about, on the fourth Sunday of Lent, we also call that a Black Sunday, but also sometimes a White Sunday, depending on the region. So, or also spring equinox, which is more common today. So it's either that fourth Sunday of Lent or actual spring equinox that we begin those rites of chasing away winter. And where I live, which is southwestern Poland and Silesia especially, we have the ritual of burning and drowning of Marianna effigy, which is also very, very similar to what Bruno was already talking about. And it needs to be understood that Marianna is actually an old pagan deity, initially of agrarian cycles, but over time she was kind of transformed into being perceived as a personification of winter, death, illness, darkness. So basically all of those things we want to chase away at this point of the year. So as Bruno was saying, Marianna is an effigy that's on a pole. She's dressed in Poland, specifically in Silesia. She's usually dressed in colorful clothing rather than white. And she has braids and a lot of flowers on her wreath and ribbons in her braids. The effigy is also paraded through the village from one household to another, and at each household people would be singing songs and so on. And as they do that, they take away all the illness and evil forces of the stagnation that stayed in the house over winter. And it's kind of absorbed symbolically into this effigy, all of that stuff that we want to chase away. And finally, after the effigy is taken throughout the whole village, she's taken outside of the perimeter of the village. She's torn into pieces and set on fire and then drowned in a river, and thus being banished away, taking away all of that, winter darkness, illness, death with her. We could be talking for hours about the symbolism of this whole thing. We don't have time for that, obviously, but it's fascinating. And the folklore of Marianna and her connection with Jaryło, the spring deity of, rejuvenation and all of that, is also very rich. The next day, basically, we have also something very similar. As Bruno was mentioning, we have 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒, which is also like a big branch or sometimes even like a young entire tree dressed with ribbons and eggs. And it's also paraded through the village on the next day as a symbol of, after we take away the death and illness and darkness, we bring in the spring, the fertility, the newness, and the new agrarian cycle thus begins, right? But also because Poland is Catholic, a lot of the attributes originally belonging to Marianna as a goddess got syncretized with the folkloric Mary. And when it comes to this, we also have the feast day of Matki Boskiej Roztwornej, Our Lady of Openings, which happens on March 25th, which is, right after the spring equinox, and used to be back in the day used to be perceived as, one and the same thing, because people didn't have, access to astronomical calculation of dates like this, right? So on the 25th, on Our Lady of Openings, we would celebrate, again, very similar things, the bringing of spring, and the Matka Boska Roztworna, Our Lady of Openings. She kind of comes from the belief that Our Lady would wake up the earth and open the earth up, which is very important, to receive new seeds in spring. And this is, again, very connected to the folklore of Marianna, who was also imagined as a goddess who carries the keys that can open the earth and can also, open the earth in spring so that the seeds can be sown and the agrarian cycle can begin, and then close the earth back up in autumn, so that, you know, the chthonic forces can then rule and the soil can go back and rest for the dark season.
I just remember on the 25th of March here in Slovenia, we celebrate Mother's Day.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I never connected that. So I feel like that is connected. And I'm just curious if any of you actually celebrate Mother's Day on the 25th of March, or it's just like us.
In Poland, it's 26th of May, actually.
Very interesting.
Yeah, but I think there could be some folkloric connections, because in Poland, for example, May as an entire month is related to Mother Mary and dedicated to her. So, you know, there's this Marian connection with the mother kind of goddess figure and Mother's Day, right? And
yeah, it's also like in Orthodox Christianity, it's called the Annunciation of the 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐓𝐒, like when the Virgin Mary or Mother Mary got the news that she was carrying Jesus. It's definitely connected to mothers in my home country as well. It has a lot of symbolism with motherhood, you know, giving gifts to mothers, you know, celebrating them, honoring them in those aspects. It's also like in some places of my country, it's also a day where people say it's like the official day of spring, like when the bears come out, when the snakes come out, when nature becomes, you know, active again, and the so-called samovili or nature nymphs, you know, the wood nymphs, they come out back into our world, and people would give like certain offerings, which was usually like bread, honey, you know, milk. These things would then be left somewhere like next to trees or beneath a stone, you know, to welcome the nature spirits, you know, back into our world. So it kind of like reminded me of that as well, like what you guys were talking about.
That's really interesting. The last thing I want to mention in here before we move on is that, you know, with the coming of Our Lady of Openings on March 25th, we also have a lot of folklore related to storks. As Bruno was mentioning, birds in Slavic folklore in general tend to symbolize the souls of the dead kind of returning back and being reincarnated back after, you know, the dark half of the year. So storks in particular, at this time of year, if they return from the warm lands, as we tend to call them, 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐓𝐒, on this date in particular, it's seen as a really good omen for the year ahead when it comes to the upcoming harvest and the growing of plants and the fertility of the people in the community. Because the storks, of course, as birds, were so revered by the Polish folk that people would actually like build nests for them on the top of their roofs on their property, because if you had a stork on your property, you were considered to be so lucky and so abundant, and the fertility of your fields and your farm animals would be like, you know, top levels, basically. So it's really interesting with the storks that also appear as this first omen of the coming of spring.
As you were saying about the feast of Mother Mary in March, we in Slovakia call it Panna Mária Štepná, which basically means when you take cutting from another tree and put it on another one, because it's believed that it would produce great fruit and it would heal fast. And also to Morena or Marzana, I hope I said it right. Also, it's interesting that in Turec, the clothes that Muriena was dressed in would be put on by the girl that would carry the letečko. So I also see some like agrarian maybe
continuity, right?
Yeah,
continuity of the cycles, right?
And if you're interested, I actually have some weather lore for the 25th of March from the Czech Republic. We call it pranostika, and it's basically a way for us to foretell the weather and the seasons and like the harvests and stuff. So if you want, I can read a couple that are pertinent to Mary. First is když noc na matičku jasno, bude úroda krásno, which means if on the night of the mother is the sky is clear, there will be harvest and it will be beautiful. Then Panny Marie zvěstování vlaštovičky zpět přihání, which is I'm not sure what zvěstování is in English. It's probably like
Annunciation.
Yeah, yeah. The Annunciation of Mary will bring back the Vlaštovka also. I don't know. The swallows. And then the last one that I want to share. Svítí-li slunce v den zvěstování Panny Marie, bude úrodný rok, which is if the sun is shining on the Annunciation of Mary, the year will be bountiful.
Being from a heavily agrarian culture, obviously spring plays and coming of spring, and therefore like a birth of the sun plays gigantic role in rites and traditions. And spring generally tries to battle winter 3 times. So it comes once, then second time, and on the third time, on the 25th, on Blahovещення, Annunciation, it kind of fully sprouts. But the first time the spring tries to actually face the winter is on 2nd of February, which is called Hromnica or Stritenya. It's technically like Imbolc or Candlemas in Christianity. And according to folklore, it's the only day in winter when one can witness lightning and hear thunder. And to mirror this event, people would light either small candles on the windows or like bonfires or small fires. And on this day, people would also bless candles in churches or bless those candles with water that is also considered to be holy on this day from the icicles or from melted snow, whoever doesn't go to church. So it's like, you know, you can always choose what fits you better. And then this water is used throughout the whole year. It's like for healing, for blessing. When someone is dying, it eases the passing. Or also this candle, which is the Hromnica candle, also eases the passing. And it protects from evil spirit or diseases or lightning as well, which is funny because it also kind of embodiments of lightning. Then this is like the first time the spring faces the winter. Then again, like the Pust, or as we call it, Syropust or Kolodi or Masnica comes. Everyone is celebrating, eating a lot because feast is happening soon. So obviously, yeah, it's a crazy day. A lot of vareniki and a lot of meat and cheese and milk happening on the day. And after people just kind of go on this 7-week Lent. And then on 14th of March, there is the Святая Вдоха day of Saint Eudokia. And this is when officially spring dance singing begins. It's like this rite when people officially start calling for spring with this traditional old way of singing, which is really not in my region. It's more nasal. Generally, it's located more in the diaphragm, and it's this really loud calling in the fields or in the forests. It's also believed to be a connection with the world of the dead. So like calling out to the ancestors to help bring the spring and also scare away the winter of a sort. And those songs called Веснянки, Гаївки, Гагілки, Ягілки also very much depends on the region. And it also believed that on this day, groundhog wakes up, comes out of the burrow, it whistles exactly 3 times, goes back to the burrow, flips on the other side, and falls asleep again. Hamsters on this day do not wake up, they only flip on the other side and keep on sleeping until the 25th. Also, it's a celebration of swallows because it is believed that they are returned from Viri, or technically from heaven, because our people believe that birds flying off to heaven and then coming back with the good news, and swallows bring spring on their wings. And whenever you see swallow, you would take a little bit of dirt and throw it in the direction where swallow flew, saying like, hey, here it is for you, it's for your nest. So it's believed to like, yeah, little sacrifice for the swallows so they can bring the spring faster. And if you're into magic, especially in the darker side of it, before the sunrise, it is also very effective to do the cursing spells, because on one of those days, like the whale thinners a little, so there is that. On this day also fruit trees are tended. Yeah, just as you guys said, also very similar. The tops of them are cut off or also like tied together. Then after this day, there is a day of warm Aleks. It's practically when it's becoming warmer, also heavy honey region. So all the beekeepers bringing out their beehives and basking them in the sun to warm it up and kind of blessed by the sun rays so the bees can return to them or wake up. Also on this day, like another cycle of the spring dance singing happening, especially in the fields and sometimes, especially in the more agrarian communities, people leave clean linen cloths and some baked goods also for the spirits of the fields. So everything happens better when the harvest time comes. And then the Annunciation or Blahoveshchenia comes, and it is practically like equinox celebration. Not that much to do with Christian line because all of the celebrations are heavily pagan or pre-Christian. And it is believed that on this day, Earth opens up and lets all the snakes, lizards, and frogs out. It mirrors the day on the fall equinox when the Earth once more opens up and all the snakes slither in under the ground. Also, again, as you said, guys, predictions for the Easter for the next year. A lot of sayings about whatever, like whichever weather is going to be today, it's going to be the same on Easter. Also, like a lot of harvest sayings and beliefs. Also, like who finally wakes up, right? The groundhog and the hamsters. So everyone is super happy about that. As in Slovakia, small bird breads are being baked that resemble storks, which are also returning. And also, big deal was storks bringing summer and on their wings and blessings from the heavens. Also, whoever owns birds, especially the flying ones, they are supposed to be released into the wild into this day. The biggest event after this is Willow Sunday. Blessings with the willow branches. Like, we don't hit each other. We like tap on the head saying, hey, it's not me beating you, it's the willow beating you, it's the blessings, the cleansings. Those willow twigs, they're usually blessed in the church, but they also can be blessed with the water from Hromnica or from Stritinja. Whoever gets the biggest twig gonna have the best year. And a lot of rhymes and blessings are being repeated this day. Is like, buď veliký jak verba a zdorový jak voda a bohatý jak zemля. So be as big as the willow, healthy as the water, and as rich as the earth. And also with those willow branches, farmers would usually cleanse their cattle, like the cows, the pigs, and everything. My region, it's sheep. And so it's also kind of this important cleansing stick for the farmers. And the closer we get to Easter, people are more excited for like the end of the Lent. And then we have the Clean Tuesday, when all the moms are hectically cleaning the house, baking paskas, baking breads, and we are making eggs. And probably the most important thing, for some reason, I couldn't find information on why, but everyone is crazy about cleaning windows on this day. For some reason, people believe if you don't clean windows, Jesus is not going to love you. But, you know...
This could be like a Slavic thing. Like we need to have clean windows now.
Yeah, like before Easter, it's very common in Macedonia. Like everyone has to like clean the house, the windows, everything has to be like super clean before, you know, the holiday comes. It's like a common
nobody
thing.
lives here, okay?
Yeah. Nobody lives there. Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to be such a blissful period, and all the moms yet manage to be so nervous and angry because, you know, everything's got to be clean. So, okay. But for us, it's always fun, especially as a kid, because you get to paint some eggs. And, well, yeah, the older you get and can reach to the windows, the worse your, you know, child is going to get. And after that, Velикдень happens, the Easter, which is like, blessing of the food. We bake those sun breads, which resemble the sun, and they called Pascha. They're also very different in each region. There are eggs, beetroot with horseradish, smoked meats, butter. From night till midday, you can come to Mass whenever you want. There are a few Masses happening for morning people in the morning, for night people at night. The food basket is always covered with this embroidered cloth called rushnik. After that is happening, probably one of the wildest days of this whole season is the drenched Monday or wet Monday, when every girl is dreading to go to school because the boys are bringing buckets of water and they are by tradition cleansing you, but obviously when half the school comes with the water guns and trying to get everyone wet, that was interesting. Obviously, the older generation would come to your house and they would spray perfume on you, so there is no mess, and in return you give them an egg. On Tuesday, women pay back. On Tuesday, women water men, and on Wednesday, it's complete chaos because everyone waters everyone. So there is that. Probably my favorite period after this is ending of the spring and meeting of the summer. It's called the Green Holidays, or Rosali. It's when the spirits of the dead coming out for a week, and it's taking place around Pentecost. At this day, like, you better not really come to the water because they can either tickle you to death, the rusalki, or steal your jewelry. It happened to my mom once. She was like, my family is not truly like full-on believers, but she was like looking in the river on one of those days and something pulled on her earring and it fell into the river, and she was like, oh well. That fits
there are
the
even
time.
like beliefs where I'm from where they say you're not supposed to swim in general, that a lot of drownings happen like during that period, and it's like dangerous, to go in any body of water because of the rusalki.
Yes, exactly. And on Thursday, it's called the Easter of the Dead, Navski Четвер. And this is when it is believed that the veil between our world and the world of the dead disappears fully, and all the dead people are coming back, and they're going to church at night for their own Easter. And there's like a dead priest reading them the mass. And you also better not leave the house, otherwise they're gonna tear you apart or like straight up murder you. Yeah, so like a lot of happening with the dead, not going to the bodies of water, and also a lot of blessing with the green things, like making flower crowns, making just bouquets, like you decorating cemeteries, the house, like everything has to be covered in something green. And there's like provody, when people go to the cemeteries and they eat there, they celebrate with their dead ones, like trying to spend time while they're so close to us, which is also differs from every region. Like in my region, we don't do it as much as, for instance, they do in South or in East, like literal feast on the grave. And also very interesting element of the ending of this whole cycle is Vodinya Kusta, or the poplar girl, is when they take one girl, unmarried girl from the village, dress her up as a big bush, like she has 10 flower crowns on the head, she covered in greenery, and they like leading her around the village singing right songs, kind of like blessings of the big green bush coming of the summer and passing of the spring. And the same one is with the poplar girl, but she's not wearing the greenery, she's wearing just a lot of necklaces, a lot of stripes in her hair, and she's being kind of like stiff, and the boys are trying to steal her, and the girls are protecting her. And this is kind of also fight between the greenery of the poplar and coming of the summer, passing of the spring. So yeah, there is that. Oh, and there is also the other one. The last Easter is called the Rahman Easter, because on the Easter day, people throw away their shells from the colored eggs into the river. And in 25 days, it is believed to reach the people who are hermits living in the also world where the birds are flying, to the Viri, to the heavens. And that's how the Rahmans know that the Easter happens. So it's happening in their lands 25 days later. They're supposed to be those like all-knowing, almost like celestial beings that are being praised as this like almost like old magicians that we know almost nothing about.
I just want to say that, like, in the beginning, that in my belief in the social bubble that I grew up in, Bohemia and like Czech Republic is a very specific region, and like the Czechs are known to be like atheists. So a lot of the holidays that we have and that are practiced and like to this day are more of like pagan origin, and I'm not very aware of many like feast days or saint days in the sense that like a lot of you have spoken. I have prepared like a little bit of information about like 3 major like folk holidays. First of all, we also have Vynášení Morany, which is basically the same thing that everybody else said. In like the Bohemian Czech regions, we also like have an effigy made out of hay, usually dressed in rags, that is carried throughout the village, and then it's usually set ablaze and then thrown into the water and drowned. There is not that much that's different. It's 2 weeks before Easter on like Smrtná neděle as well. Then maybe a little bit more specific about the Easter holidays. On Easter Monday, the men have little whips that they weave from willow branches, usually in like 4. So it's like 4, 8, 12 branches, up to 24 branches that they weave together. And they use it to whip the women in the village, but also it happens in the cities. It happens in the families as well. It's supposed to be symbolic, but also it sometimes leaves marks on the women. Traditionally, they're supposed to do it until noon, because if they go over noon, the women are then able to water them with water, or like throw like cold water on them. And in return for this whipping, the men receive the kraslice, or like the painted eggs, which are like the symbol of fertility. Just as a note, we from where I'm from, we use onion peels, but we put the eggs in like a little bit of cloth and add like leaves and other like natural materials, which then leave an unpainted or an uncolored part, like in the shape of the plant. So that's maybe something that might be interesting. And then I will end up with like the end of April, which is we have like burning of the witches, which I think is very interesting. It happens on the night of 30th of April to 1st of May, when people all around, even like to this day in cities and in villages, they gather, they make huge bonfires, and they also bring effigies and burn them. Or from what I have like practiced before, usually they bring something to burn in the fire as a cleansing, or like if you want to leave something behind from the previous year, then you can bring it and burn it. And the difference between like burning of the Marana, which is like leaving behind winter and chasing away winter, and like death and stuff, the burning of the witches, if you take away the witches, that is more of a protection ritual, or like a cleansing ritual for like the fertility of the field. So it's like a little bit different, but it's very similar. And then on the 1st of May, in the villages, they build majka, which is like a huge maypole, usually with like a little wreath on top. And the boys are building the maypoles, and in between villages they can steal the maypoles and have like little contests for luck and stuff like that. Oh, and I wanted just to mention the masopust or pust that like everybody else mentioned before. We also have that. We call it masopust. It's basically also corresponding with the Lenten period, and there is a carnival as well associated, and most people here dress as animals, like domestic animals, pigs, cows, horses, and stuff like that. And it's like a big thing as well. And I think it's also registered in UNESCO, like some of the practices here.
Well, it's very interesting what we've heard until now. While I do have some in Bulgaria, we do have some common things, especially for the Pust or Proshka or Mesopust. We call it Mesopustna Sreda. I've chosen 3 celebrations that are a bit more different, well, besides Easter. But before I start, I would like to make one remark, and that is that culture does not equal ethnicity. Because we're speaking about Slavic places and Slavic groups, etc., etc. but you should know, and the viewers should know, that culture does not equal ethnicity, just like ethnicity does not equal nationality or religion. So culture there's cultural connections and cultural exchange between people, and I will speak about some of those things too. Now, Bulgaria is an interesting place because it's situated on a crossroads. So while we do characterize as being Slavic, from the Slavic group, our ethnicity is much more mixed, and I'm sure that's the case for the whole Balkans, actually, because its geographical position is so such a crossroad that whoever went from here left something, and this makes for an interesting mix. Now, I'm not sure whether those traditions that I'll be sharing now are Slavic, strictly speaking, and actually folklorists would argue about this too, but it's either way, it's interesting to mark them. Now, since I get the impression that most of you live in places where Catholicism is the predominant religion, it's quite the opposite here, and I think in Macedonia the same. It's Orthodox Christianity, and this means that our Easter is different. Easter is determined on the basis, it's very pagan, this determination. It's the first, I forgot how it is. It's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So it's so Christian, so Christian. Anyway, our spring traditions begin on the 1st of March. And it's a celebration that we call just like that. And it's connected with this being, this mythical creature that's kind of a personification of spring, and it's called Marta. It's a female creature, and it's called Baba Marta, and Baba means grandmother, actually grandma. It's more personal, and she's also a personification of the month itself. And the other months are considered her brothers, etc., etc. And she's always the one who brings, yes, the birds from the warm places. We call it the same way too. And it's celebrated in a very, very interesting way. People do these amulets from red and white thread. Now, all of the celebrations I'll be speaking about are ones that are celebrated to this day and are part of our culture. So I will show you, actually. We make these, like the influencers, we make these small amulets, and it's something that you would like tie on your hand and use it like that, and you can buy it, like all kinds of Martinica is the name, and it's so widespread that throughout the whole country, everyone wears them in bulk. You know, it's insane, and it's very interesting because it's now getting like you can get a set for making them. You know, so it's traditionally made from wool, white and red wool, and another variety are the small people. So this is Pijo, and this is Panda, and this is the male one, and this is the female one. And they're usually tied on their heads, and they would hang like that. This month, this celebration is connected with the color red, and it's a color that's, I don't have to explain this, of course. It's connected with life, it's connected with blood, of course. And actually, all the spring rites are very much connected with that color, because it's also connected with the sun, with warmth, with abundance, if you wish, and so on. And on the 1st of March, people would hang out. This was mostly done in the past, but people would hang out the red clothes, so that when Baba Marta comes, she would be happy and she won't spoil the weather, because March here is very annoying month with weather and coldness and heat and whatever.
Yeah, we call it like the moody month because Baba
Yes.
Marta is like very moody. You know, she is rainy and then it's sunny and it's all together.
Yes, absolutely. And also, this is not something that only Bulgarians do. Greeks do it, Romanians do it too, Serbians, of course, Macedonians. Also, I'm not sure about the other Balkan countries. The next celebration, oh, by the way, all of these spring celebrations, because you mentioned garbage and cleaning, I totally agree. But an interesting practice from the past was gathering your garbage with the broom, you know, sweeping is the word I'm looking for, sweeping your garbage and then lighting it on fire. And in some places, this garbage is also used for fumigation. So like the garbage is used to cleanse the spaces. But on the note of the color red, on Easter, which is of course great celebration, and I heard somebody say it, but in Bulgarian it's also called Velikden, from literally meaning great day. And so the coloring of the eggs is performed either on the Thursday or on the Saturday, which is a more modern take. It's traditionally on the Thursday at sunrise, usually. And it's at sunrise because they used to color so many eggs. They would give eggs to everyone, like a lot. My father-in-law actually told this story that when he was a child, his mother used to collect the eggs for months because there were no like shops to get eggs or something. And as he was playing in the basement of the house for some reason, but kids are wild, he broke the basket. So all the eggs, like hundreds of eggs, are those hundreds of eggs. And the reason that in the past they used to make so many eggs is because they used to eat the eggs colored on Velikden until 40 days after that, until what we call Spasovden, but I didn't check how it's in English. So yes.
I think it's called Ascension Day, like on English.
I don't know.
Ascension Day.
Yes, I trust you. I really don't know. So when you color the eggs, what we do first is always color the red ones first, and the first egg that we color, we preserve for magic. So you do spells with it. It's for healing, and it's some people break it. I never break it because it might smell bad. But also the first red egg, or one of the first red eggs, is also buried in the fields for abundance, fertility, etc. And while now we color them with like things we buy from the store, in the past people would color the eggs with natural things like onions, of course. Everyone has had a grandma who used a lot of onions for this thing. Now grandmas steal them from the large shops. I don't know if your grandmas do this. Or for instance, another very popular herb here is from the Rubia family, Rubia tinctorum. This one was used too. Now,
sometimes would use wine, red wine.
Yes, I've tried that. It didn't work for me in the way that I expected. Also, this red sequoia. Beetroot. It's a red like root thing. But another thing that's very important on Easter, and everybody does that, is eating together. And we often speak about the magic, the spells, etc., etc. But eating together is very important in folk culture. And the next celebration that I'm about to share, which is again a spring one here, and it's a very large celebration. It's called it's the St. George's Day, the Feast of St. George, which is respectively either on the 23rd of April, following the old tradition, or on the 6th of May, following the new one. And there's this saying in Bulgarian which goes Gulam praznik Великден, още по-голям Гергьовден, meaning a great holiday, a great celebration, Easter, even greater celebration, St. George's Day. And here we see one thing that Western people want to approve of, and this is the animal sacrifice of a lamb. Many people wouldn't approve this because when we hear animal sacrifice, we imagine like something from a dark metal group cover of an album or something. But in reality, an animal sacrifice is actually a shared meal. So lamb is the traditional one. This is the first time lambs are eaten in springtime, and this is a celebration that, by the way, unites the three major groups, both religious and ethnic. Here, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Romani people. In many places, people would celebrate Gherghevden all together. So, regardless of the customs or their religious beliefs, they would celebrate it together. And this is all done on a common ground. And the sacrifice in itself is very, very interesting, but I would not go into details. But blood also plays a vital role here. So when you slaughter an animal, and there's one thing about ritual sacrifices, that animals should be slaughtered in a way that it's as fast and as painless as possible. So I have been to such rituals and celebrations, and I've seen the difference between a butcher knowing their job and one that are not so experienced. And I have to tell you, because when you read about it, you're like, yeah, what's the difference? But there's a huge difference, huge, I tell you. And as a bystander, the one that was very, very good at his job, it was like I didn't understand what happened, not until he was like removing the skin to preserve it. It's like so fast, and honestly, it's very interesting. And this is something you cannot understand until you see it. And I do understand that it might be very sensitive about for many people, and for good reason, of course. But once you've been part of the culture and you know the respect given to these animals and the way that they are treated, and the respect that it is given to the body of the sacrificed animal, we eat everything. I mean, everything.
I'm just curious, is there a set date when this usually happens?
Yes, it's on the St. George's Day. And this is a time when you already have the green grass, the sheep have mated and have given birth. The small lambs are of a specific age, not age, but months or something. But
this is in May, correct?
Yes.
At the end of May.
Yes, the beginning of May.
Oh, the beginning.
Early April. Yeah. And I have to say that back a long time ago, there were lots of back in the day, here on the Balkans, in Greece and Bulgaria, and I think in Serbia too, the amount of sheep that people looked after was not hundreds, thousands. So you can imagine what would happen to the land if they're not eaten. So yes, and this is
curious because this also reminds me of the Islamic practice of Kurban.
Yeah. It's also called Kurban, like in my language. This type of animal sacrifice, which is done on St. George's Day.
Yeah.
We also like do it when we build like new houses. It's a typical practice that a lamb, male lamb would be then slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because this is something that I definitely observed even as a child that would be done. And as you spoke about, animal sacrifice and the difference between it being done right and wrong, it's very obvious if you've experienced that. I just wanted to add that one like important part of that animal sacrifice, at least in Bosnia, is that the blood is like spilled upon the upon the land. Usually it's like, it was always done like near where the field was. So it was also blessed to be prosperous and abundant.
Well, I can go into a lot of details here. The blood is important because it's life. And it's always, every sacrificial animal's blood is collected, all of it. And in a ritual way, there are wreaths, a lot of flowers, as you mentioned, actually. And one thing that is very typical for the 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐓𝐒 celebrations is that they would take blood from the land and they would make crosses on the faces of children with it. I just realized how that sounds about a Western audience, but yes, they
Witchcraft.
do that. Yeah, well,
It is what it is.
it is what it is. Like Slavic children know how to party, as we've already established. But it's a blessing, actually. It's taking life in order to continue life, and it's inevitably is what we have to do. That's how life continues. And by the way, yes, we do call it kurban. And I think that this practice on the Balkans is actually very much influenced by the Ottoman rule,
Yes.
which lasted for a long, long time. Yeah. I also have a saying that I have prepared, and I think that it would be interesting. I'm pretty sure you all have it, but we say in regards to agriculture, the most prominent saying we have is "Каквото посееш, това ще пожънеш." Whatever you sow,
То ке посеш, то ке сознаеш. In Macedonian. Yeah.
Co zasiejesz, to zjesz.
Yeah.
Co zasejesz, to sklidíš. We have the same.
Що посієш, то пожнеш.
I just want to note in regards to the animal sacrifices, in the Czech Republic, we don't actually, I don't think it's considered sacrifice, but we do have zabíjačka, which is usually the slaughtering of a pig within a village, and the whole village comes together. It's a celebration. The whole pig, again, is used and eaten and processed on the spot. So maybe it is kind of also a Slavic thing to basically share. It is a sacrifice in a way, but in the Czech Republic, it's not religious. It's more cultural. It's more like communal celebration, and it's done for weddings, for spring, during Pust as well, during like the spring celebrations. But here it's usually a pig or a cow.
If I can add, for example, in Slovakia, with this slaughtering of an animal, in spring, people that don't want to have like insects in houses, it is like a folk remedy almost, that you would take a black male goat and slaughter it and drop the blood on the floors of your home, so no insects would like stay there. It's not really a sacrifice. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could see like some symbolism or I don't know what, but it's more like remedy.
That's really interesting, because we have the same thing with the black goat as well, and sacrificing them for specific like magical purposes of protection or banishing certain energies. But also with sacrifice, just briefly adding, it's cool to hear that it's done in some regions for spring, because over here at least we do animal sacrifice on the 11th of November for the Saint Martin's feast day, which is also very martial, connected to blood and all of that. So we sacrifice geese and pigs mostly at the time of year. So
Martinská husa in Slovakia.
Same.
So a lot was already mentioned, because here we start like at mid of January to March, I think, with Pust. Which one part is the Zampan, where people dress up, walk around the village, loud dancing, drinking, getting eggs and bacon, and just celebrating. So this was already mentioned, so I will not go into deep. Just that one person of this group will have like a birch rod, I think it was, and will just touch people and be like, here, you have some luck for this year. And yeah, usually then this person is dancing with the housewife that is in the house where they just celebrate right now, and then they go further. Then I don't know if it is like a tradition for like Sorbs in general, or if it was just a thing that we just did. But during the spring cleaning, there was a focus on doors, doorsteps, stairs, and the oven, which is, I think, the folkloric reason for this is that the Sorbs believed in house spirits, which lived in these places next to the oven and under stairs. For example, a dragon or snakes. And then we have also a lot of Easter celebrations, like Easter traditions. For example, the Sorbian Easter eggs, we call them here. It's just that the Easter eggs are decorated with like wax, with beeswax, and then they would be put into the color, and then you melt the wax again, do it again, or you just leave it as it is. And the children would take these eggs to play Valleien. It just, they make like a sloping track and let the eggs roll down. And since they're not rolling straight, they would sometimes touch each other, and the egg that touches the other is won. And either they get the egg or a coin or a biscuit, something they agreed on. Which is also very interesting is that some of you mentioned that with the water, you either drown something or you stay away from the water, because here we have a tradition that is the Easter water fetching, which is basically a young woman who will go between Easter Saturday and Easter Sunday before dawn. She will go to a spring, a river, and will fetch a little water, and then has to walk to the church, and is not allowed to speak, because the water is said to have like healing properties and for beauty and luck. And on her way, usually or traditionally, men would try to make her speak by scaring her or just saying hello and just trying to get some sound out of her. If she speaks, the water is just water. So then also we make a big Easter bonfire, which is also the whole village comes together. Like they burn old things. Sometimes people even bring furniture just to burn it. And people come together, just celebrate. I think the biggest celebration I've experienced was where also dancers were there, dancing around the fire, singing, drinking, eating. And then usually, traditionally, it was on Pentecostal Sunday, I think is the name. The maypole would be pulled up. And then there's also this, what someone else mentioned before, that people are allowed to steal it. So usually it's guarded by someone in the village, like the whole day. I think I experienced one time that ours was stolen, and then it was just gone. And usually this is in pre-Christian times, it was for fertility, to bring some luck into the village. But I think it was during the National Socialism times here that they said, okay, we raise this one at the 1st of May, and then we leave it there for the whole month.
Very interesting that you mentioned about the doorstep and the spirits, because when I did my research also on the Ukrainian tradition, we are like, there is this superstition you're not allowed to like kiss or hug over the doorstep. Mm-hmm. And apparently because there's a spirit living there. Where does it come from? Because back in the day, when small children or toddlers would die, they would be buried right in front of the door, mm-hmm. on the doorstep, and then they would serve as a protectors or as a hodovanci of this house. It doesn't happen anymore, obviously, but the belief still exists that you might anger some spirits by doing something wrong at the doorstep because there's a child buried.
Yeah, we also have, like, for us, the house spirits, for example, a dragon, like the Sorbs have a big thing for dragons and snakes, apparently. And there's also a saying that if you anger your house dragon, that he will burn your house down. So that's
Yeah, we also have like a similar thing about like a house spirit who comes in the form of a snake, and like every house has its own snake protector, and if you kill the snake, then that would mean like misfortune for the family.
Yeah, same. Домашний вуж. There's the saying.
Stopan. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's the saying, don't kill a snake, for it's not a snake but a man. And yeah, you're allowed to feed it only milk, even though technically it gives snakes diarrhea. So I don't know how it's about now, but yeah.
Yeah, we also have like stories for children that are about like I know there's this story where there's like little snake with a little crown that slithers out, and like there are children that feed it milk and whatever, and mom finds out, but then ends up like letting the snake stay or something, and then they're blessed upon their like above their even imagination with prosperity and all that stuff.
We also have like household spirit that comes in the form of white snake. And it's usually thought of as the soul of the first man of the house. And when you kill him, it usually means that the head of the household, the man, will die to replace him. And you bring him milk, and he also loves to eat with children, like kasha with milk. And they feed him, and we have stories about mother hearing that her little kid is talking with someone, also sitting on the doorstep, and she sees that it's a snake, white snake, and she kills him because she's scared, and then the child dies because of that.
Yeah. Word to word. It's so cool.
But yes, he usually lives either in the threshold of the house or the fireplace. Like those would be his two main locations, like where he is situated.
Yeah. And even my grandma told me about their white snake, because she's from a village in, I don't know, 50 kilometers from here in northern Slovakia, Čičmany. And she told me about white snake that they had in the farmhouse where they had their cattle, and they would also like leave a bit of milk for it. So he would go and he would drink it.
There's like a lot of mythology about snakes in general, like in the Slavic and in the Balkan world. It's a very mystical animal. We have like this one belief about the white snake. Supposedly, like if you find it like on a hazel tree, and if you like eat this white snake, you're gonna have the ability to communicate with plants and animals.
Yes, we have exactly the same like belief, but he lives under the hazel tree.
Under the tree.
And if you eat him, you will get some magical power. Usually healing.
It's so funny because it's like either like don't kill him, but then also eat him and you get magical power.
It depends on where he lives, right? Like if it's in your house, then you don't do it.
And I also like see this kind of thing that a lot of things that are taboo, if you break the taboo, you will like gain some power from it. For example, in Slovak culture, if you kill a swallow, that's horrible for you, for your household. But also, if you have beehives and you kill a swallow, that they are believed to have little stones of different color in their stomachs, and different colors of the stones give you different powers. For example, healing, or your beehives will thrive even more, and stuff like that. So if you break taboo, you will bring some misfortune on you, but also gain something lovely.
I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense when you think about it from a magical perspective. As a witch, I mean, everything comes with a price, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, if you want to deal with spirits, you need to pay, basically, right?
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. I think we need to do like a separate episode on household spirits, because this is...
We should.
Yeah, there's a lot of lore, and I see a lot of overlap with the snakes and the dragons and the like thresholds and the stove in the household, right? That's like the main spots. This is really cool. In your household or family, what are some traditional practices around springtime, and what do you practice today?
In my family specifically, it's really hard to say because we are immigrants. I mean, I'm born here in Slovenia, but they are immigrants from Bosnia. So there are a lot of traditions that we kind of left behind. But as I mentioned before, as children, we still would do certain things, such as coloring the eggs in spring, and especially masquerading for Pust, going from house to house. And we would say, " Aj také za pusta hrusta," which is really difficult to translate, but it's roughly means like, do you have anything for Pust to eat, in a way? And like we would get candy or coffee or fruit or like random little things to eat mostly. Sometimes we'd sing songs, things like that. What has also been very big thing for us has been the cleaning and the cleansing, as was also mentioned before. I'm also not sure if that has to do with culture or what exactly, or folk practices. It's probably a mix of everything here, and it's really difficult to kind of pick it apart. But yes, everything would get cleaned, sheets would get like washed, windows, doors. That definitely has like a special like there is a special focus on doors and windows, so kind of like where the energy comes in and out from the living space. There would also be a lot of decluttering, like letting go of old stuff, which is also kind of in sync with the practices that you've mentioned before, like burning old items and stuff like that. Although we don't really practice that, like burning them or whatever, just like cleaning out old stuff and making space for the new, basically. I personally still practice the cleansing part, the cleaning out part. I also like to take time this part of the year to clean my floors, like wet cleaning, like mopping floors and stuff, adding certain herbs to the water that is used and stuff like that. Blessing of seeds is a big one for me personally, which is usually done in context of the spring equinox, and the coloring of eggs is kind of connected to that for me, because also I like to use the eggshells on my garden later on through the year, as I usually will bless them and kind of put specific intentions into the eggs, sometimes write symbols and stuff like that. Costumes are definitely still a thing. Ringing, dancing, singing songs. I also wanted to add just like a little saying, because I forgot before, for Pust, because I find it really nice, and it says, "Za pusta morajo biti siti ljudje, živina in duhovi," which basically means for Pust, everybody have to be full or satiated. People, the livestock, and the spirits.
Very nice saying. In my family, we definitely also keep up the spring cleaning tradition that Tamara mentioned. It is something that we don't actually do on Easter. It's something that takes place before Easter or in the beginning of March, where you just tidy up, things that are like old and we don't like need them anymore. We just disregard them, throw them away. But on the more like ritualistic side, and this is something which my family does like every holiday. Doesn't matter if it's like Easter, if it's like Jurgovden or whatever type of holiday it is. What we do is we light frankincense, and like with the frankincense, we go around the space, like in every corner of the house. And while we do this, typically the windows are open for like all the bad energy to like leave the space. And basil infused holy water, we sprinkle around the corners with that as well. And typically, certain Christian prayers are said, usually Oče naš, Our Father. we do like these types of cleansings when there's a holiday. Specifically for 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐒, which is Great Thursday, and this is something which also was mentioned here and there throughout the recording. The housewife would wake up early, like in the morning hours, like before sunrise, and she would like dye the eggs. And like the first egg that she dyes, she will like bring outside on like the window or like the balcony, wherever she's situated, for the first ray of the sun to catch the egg, basically to like empower it and bless it. And early in the morning, the housewife would take that egg, and while she's like washing her children, like while she's bathing them, she will like circle around the egg on their face, and she's gonna repeat a certain charm, which basically what she says is Crveno belo debelo, which means like red, white, round. Like I would not say fat, I would translate it as round. And basically, she's blessing the child with qualities of good life, health, fertility, you know, for it to be abundant and full. Not only does the housewife do this to her children, she does it to other members of the house as well. But of course, they're not like in the shower while she's doing that. She's doing it like on like the dry, basically, with them having clothes on and everything. Something else which happens on Easter, like before the stroke of midnight, the people like go to churches, and we carry like a red egg with us and a candle, and the candle is like always lit. And some of the people, they walk clockwise around the church 3 times while the priests are saying the prayers. And something that I do, like while I walk in that circle, is I repeat all of my folk charms like 3 times. Basically, I whisper them or I say them in my head to basically charge them. And this is something I do like every year, which is also like part of my Bani tradition. Yeah, so that takes place, and like the leftover of the candle, which was lit like during Easter. We have like this superstition in my family, like if you're not like unmarried or if you want to find a lover, you can just put it underneath your pillow, and it's gonna bring you like a lover or something. So people who have like no partners or who want to marry, it's something that they do. And of course, like the church sees those things as heresy, as blasphemy. You know, they don't consider it as okay what the people are doing, but people do it regardless.
When it comes to what I do still in my household, those are traditions that are mainly connected to the like Holy Week before Easter, actually. And we start that with the Palm Sunday or Willow Sunday. So we call that Niedziela Wierzbowa or Niedziela Palmowa. Traditionally, people consecrate those big palms or like branches of willow. What I tend to do, I don't go to church to do that. I tend to just gather my own branches of willow and bless them at home with blessed water. And they are traditionally used for like folk magic practices of healing, and as well as a tool for asperging. So like, sprinkling water around for blessing purposes, right? So for healing, I tend to use those willow branches for weeping myself or somebody else to regain health and vitality. And for the asperging aspect, I use that around the household whenever like something needs to be blessed. So that would be on the Palm Sunday. And then the Holy Week, we kind of tend to start traditionally on Holy Wednesday, which is the day when we do our cleansing of the household, right? So everybody, as was mentioned kind of before, like you need to scrub the windows for Jesus. That kind of stuff is definitely present in Poland. And like it's almost a contest of who has the cleanest house. I admit I'm not that much of a freak about cleaning physically, but I like to do 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒, which is fumigation, spreading of the smoke for purposes of cleaning the house. I tend to use a bunch of herbs that were previously consecrated on the 15th of August on Our Lady of Herbs. And I just go with the cleansing with the smoke around the home. So that's on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, what we traditionally do is washing ourselves in spring water, because it's believed that on the, as it's called, Maundy Thursday, Wielki Czwartek, waters possess magical properties that, can cure any illness, can grant beauty, as well as they can remove any hexes and curses. So if I'm able, I always tend to go to the nearest source of like wild water, you could say, living water, and just wash myself for those purposes. Then on Friday, it's interesting because Friday, in Catholicism, that's when Jesus is dead. And that's also when it's believed in folklore that witches reign, devils reign, and all of the evil chtonic powers, can do whatever they want because Jesus is dead. So basically Friday is for doing any type of spellcraft, and especially the, darker kind if you have this kind of need. So that's what I would tend to focus on. But also it's traditionally for renewing protections around the household and decorating the eggs as well. So one popular charm that I tend to do on this day is doing 3 crosses on the front door of my house for protection. And with the eggs, we decorate them, as was kind of mentioned, dyeing them with onion peels and scraping designs or symbols into them. And then those eggs are kind of consumed as a symbol of renewal of life and vitality. And they are also given to the ancestors or the land spirits as an offering for a similar purpose, to give them life force energy. So that's also what I do. And lastly, on Holy Saturday, it's traditional to consecrate fire and water and the blessing of food, right? So what we tend to do, because it's believed that it's the coming of spring is the new year. So new fire must be kindled for the household, and water must be cleansed from all those chtonic kind of forces of winter. That's also something that was mentioned previously. So I would, in my practice at least, I would focus on the kind of rekindling of new fire for the year ahead, as well as the blessing of water for the year ahead for using, folk magic and all of that.
In my family, we're not that, back at home, not super religious. Therefore, the general things that my parents and my brothers do is the Clean Thursday, the big cleanup, Willow Sunday, Varbna Nedelya. It's usually grandmas they bring from churches, and tapping you with a willow. I do it outside of the Christian bubble. And obviously Easter with all the celebration, also with the Lent. But since half of the family is vegan/vegetarian, it's mostly Dad who has to really go on Lent. Then a lot of singing. We love singing when it comes to traditional, a spring dance songs. Me and my mom, we love to do that. When it comes to me, because I live pretty far away from them, I'm trying to keep the tradition alive, and I'm bringing sometimes the things that are not practiced in my family but are existent in tradition. For instance, dieduch, that is standing behind of me. It's something that is usually made from the bundle of wheat of the last harvest in fall, and it is practically a vessel for the ancestors that is to join you on the Christmas table, and you call for the ancestors to come and join you, and you burn it and release ancestors on the spring equinox. So that's what I'm always trying to do every year. We're trying to go somewhere to the field and burn it and keep this alive. Also trying to keep with the Hromnica Day water tradition alive. But considering that winters are really warm today, it's hard to find icicles, hard to collect the water. So we're trying to do it either from the rivers or from the wells, which is very different from what it's supposed to be, but nevertheless. Obviously singing, the food tradition, and the Easter of the Dead, or the end of spring, death and / chtonic traditions, and working with those deities and spirits, and not kind of protecting myself from them, but more trying to interact and work and also divinate within this practice, which also really needs a lot of practice, and it comes with particular dangers. But this is the field that I'm trying to stay active in.
Since, as I mentioned, I am quite very multicultural, I get to pick and choose what I want. I usually wear, or first of all, I make myself or receive martenica, for March, and I actually wear it throughout the month, usually based on what I was taught, up until I see the first blooming tree, or technically if I saw a stork, then I could also take it off, but I have never in my life, in my 35 years, seen a stork. No, I mean, I have seen storks, but not like during March. So that has never happened. So I usually take it off when I see a blooming tree, and I usually tie it to a tree near my house. That's one of the things. I don't really keep Easter. I have quite traumatic memories from my childhood and being beaten or like whipped with the willow branches. So I usually hide at home and keep away from society in case I actually like meet somebody. But I do observe the burning of the witches. For me, it's more like Walpurgisnacht, or like it's more of a spiritual holiday. So I usually like go somewhere into nature, or like to a cottage to like do some like inner work, meditation, cleansing, and then I do burn something from like last year that I want to like get rid of. So I do keep the part with the fire. From the relevant holidays, I think that's mostly it from what I practice today as I am now.
For me, it's, of course, on Fashiangi, before Lent, we dress in costumes and go through the village, and you must dance. And if possible, pick women as high as you can, so the flags grows tall. And also, because I personally grow flags, because I also spin it, we have this tradition that you must drink on flags. For flags to grow bountifully, tall, and beautiful, you must get drunk. So if you do this, you're set. On Hromnice, I go to church, they bless candles, and also I try to go on ice and like not skate, but sašmíkať.
Like slide?
Slide, yeah, thank you. Slide, and that is also for the flags to grow tall. And I also make a really, really long pasta. So we call it čulance, because you do this with them and this, so they are long and chubby. And that is also for the flags to grow long and beautiful. And then, of course, on the Easter week, it starts with Kvetná nedeľa, but of course there is vynášanie moreny and stuff I talked about. But the Easter week that starts with Palm Sunday, we call it Kvetná nedeľa, so like Flower Sunday. I go to church, we bless willow catkins. We call them bažičky or bahňatka. And then I put one in these guys as a protection against fire and lighting. The others I keep on my altar for like healing purposes, or when it's a really big storm, you can burn them. And for protection, of course, and tiež 𝐏𝐀𝐍𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐒. Of course, the cleaning part, because Slavs. And on Maundy Thursday, we call it Zelený štvrtok, or Green Thursday. It's called green because we eat green food, such as nettles, spinach, and stuff like that. So you would be healthy throughout the year. Also, I practice the ritual washing in living waters before sunrise. And it's also because you will be beautiful, you have healthy skin, and you can also drink it to be healthy from inside out. And I also do this stuff that I sit under a willow and I will comb my hair and I will say, vrba, vrba zelená, daj mi vlasy na dva pásy, čo znamená willow, green willow, give me hair to have long hair.
I'd say like for two waists long. So
yeah,
like
waist,
doubly
waist. I couldn't
long.
remember that word. I also ritually wash on Good Friday or Velký Piatok. Also on Velký Piatok, you cannot move soil. It's forbidden because Christ lies in the ground. Also, it's like you should really not eat much. Also, making kraslice. And also, Velký Piatok is the best day for washing in the living waters because Pán Ježiš padol do vody, which means Jesus Christ fell into water. Saturday, we call it White Saturday. It's not really much. You also start new fire and bring firewood in the house. We have like fireplace, so I do that. We also go to church with my grandma on Vigilia, and that's about it. But also on the Easter Sunday, we prepare svetenina, which is like blessed food that we take to church to be blessed in baskets with ručník or utierka on it, and then we eat together. And it usually, you have to have bread, eggs, white cake or ten biely koláč, which is like little bit sweet, horseradish, butter, and tvaroh or cottage cheese, practically, basically. And also you throw water on women on Easter Monday. Or whip them with korbač, which is few branches of willow tied together.
So as for my household, so my family itself is, even though we live in the Sorbian area of Brandenburg, they're very German. So very, very traditionally German. So they just celebrate Easter as the Christian holiday itself and just take part in like the community celebrations, like the big Easter fire and Zampan. For me, since I live alone, I try to include some pagan things, for example, and witchcraft things. I do divination because it's the beginning of the year. I need to know how my year will go. I clean, I block the mirrors, the windows, and then clean them again. And I just take community things, as mentioned, the Easter bonfire or the maypole. I also like to take like walks in spring because I like nature. I'm just connected very to nature and try to connect with the spirits of the nature around here, or pray to the gods of spring, nature, or if there's water nearby, like here, for example, there's a small lake, then I will try to connect to the water spirits and try to form a bond as such. And yeah, that's it.
So as I already said, I will be doing Martinica. I actually bought this not to show it to you, but to make the Martinicas with my children. And it's done in a ritual way. So you would do specific things and say specific words. They're not secret, but I won't go into detail because of the time constraints. On Easter, we do celebrate Easter. Yes, it is a Christian celebration, but I have the feeling that after all these spring celebrations, they're not so much about different religions, but are dedicated to the coming of the spring, of the new hope that returns. And by the way, it's the same. It's symbolism. It's kind of the same with Jesus, because he's the hope that comes again. He rises, so people would continue to have hope in a very similar way that spring does for us pagans. So I will, because I'm the eldest woman in my family, I will get up early. I will paint the eggs, or I'll just leave it for a later period so that the children can take part in it too. We do with the red egg, we do a cross on the forehead. We don't do there's this round thing that Aleks mentioned, but I do the cross, not because the cross is Christian symbol, but because it's a solar one. And I also will be baking obscene amounts of breads in different in different types because we do that a lot. It's like very ritual. There's nothing ever happens here without bread on the Balkans.
Absolutely.
Like bread, wine. Yeah, bread, wine, and salt are the same trinity of our people.
Our holy trinity.
And I really want, yes, and I want to really go and do something I haven't done as a child since I was a child. And this is on the Great Friday. There's this rite in the church where people would line up to go under a table.
Oh yeah, we do that too.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's really fun watching people going under the table. They leave flowers on top. This is inside the church, and it's like symbolic for going under the ground, like Jesus did. And I would really like to relive that once again. I would really like to relive this as an adult because I haven't done it like since a long time ago. And for the St. George's Day, we have a property that we hope to live one day, and in its immediate vicinity, there's a chapel, a small paraklis of St. George, and the tradition that's actually spans from antiquity that there are people who watch over this temple and do the feast day on their they pay for it. They do this, and it's a very small community. It's nice, so I plan on taking the whole family there. And for the water, it's very fun because we do have this idea that waters on specific days have specific properties. But on St. George's Day, there's this idea that the dew, so in the morning when there's dew on the grass, this is the one that's healing and magical and fancy and so on. So you have to roll over on the ground in order to take it in yourself. And I don't plan on doing that because the weather has been crazy. But if I have the chance one day, I will totally do that. And of course, I'll do lots of stuff that I don't share online with people I don't know. No, not you, but the viewers.
This has been an amazing gathering of practitioners from various regions, and the comparison of our practices and traditions and folklore has been absolutely amazing to witness. Thank you, everybody, for that. For the viewers who have been enjoying this, please check out each and every one of those people. The links are going to be down below. Check out what they're doing, what they're offering to you. Everybody here is amazing and worth exploring. If you would like to learn more in depth about those traditions, many of the folks here actually do have offerings where you can learn more in depth about the stuff they do. Do check that out for sure. Do let us also know how you like this, and if you have any questions or ideas for potential future episodes where we show up in this group together to talk about some of other traditions and practices and folklore of our respective regions. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching.